The other day, I talked about my experience with Resident Evil, the series, the franchise, how I've beaten every single game, and kind of just gave my thoughts and history on it. I'll link that video here in the drop down somewhere, so you can watch it if you want. But I use that as a launch pad to talk about the state of the movies, and just how it's so implausible to me that they cannot adapt this series to film like accurately. I don't understand, and how I have little faith in the Zach Krieger film coming out to satisfy that itch. I mean, it's gonna be interesting. I'm sure it'll be a good movie. It'll be like this. It'll be like Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within, where that movie is a fantastic film, but it has nothing to do with Final Fantasy. I really enjoyed that movie. I think it's very underrated in that everyone hates it because it's supposed to be a Final Fantasy movie. Like, change the title to just The Spirits Within, and it's a fantastic movie. But the Paul W.S. Anderson movies are not that good. I like 1 and 2. Three's okay, but after that, the whole series just tried to just, without any explanation, adapt one to one what was happening in the games, and the story just wasn't there. The story came second, and it just never made sense. I really didn't like that franchise, and so I was really excited when they redid. They did the reboot, and I made a video a couple years ago talking. I'll put that in the cards too, about how the Johannes Roberts movie, how I actually thought it was a cool concept that they were going to combine the stories of 1 and 2 into a 90-minute film, but even then, like, the writing was on the wall, the you look back and, I mean, the warning signs were there and everyone was like really showing concern, and I was like, it can't be as bad as it has been, and I was totally wrong on that. And then the CG film started off really good. I really like Degeneration, and I really like Damnation. But Vendetta, I never really watched just because I saw like there was a way to revert the zombies, and I'm like, wait a minute, so Leon and Chris just murdered everyone? It seemed really dumb. And I watched Death Island just because, and it's okay. And I also watched Infinite Darkness when Infinite Darkness came out, but it was just, I don't know. Infinite Darkness was not the best. I really enjoyed how, if I'm talking good things, I really liked how they were just like, oh, look at this. There's tension between Leon and Claire. Not the tension that the cringe fan base wants, but tension in the fact that they really do not ideologically line up in that film at the end, and then they just go their separate ways, so to speak. Um, but really, one thing, as I'm contemplating this, one thing that I always thought Resident Evil could have done well with is actually showing the world. Like, you could have a survival horror drama, right? I really like that aspect, watching the outbreak happen and watching the freaking board of directors like freak out and go into full corporate meltdown mode. Like, explore that, be a fly on the wall as they're having this meeting, just this tense meeting, as they're like, oh my god, it's in the water supply. Oh, well, did my family drink it? Whatever, because it's a company that lives and breathes in Raccoon City. You would think that they would have like an HQ or a management there. Just to experience it from that side would be pretty cool. But then also in the fallout of that, like, you could explore just the courtroom drama. You could write a full-on courtroom drama about that aspect, about the pharmaceutical giant that had a zombie virus that broke out, and they were getting just lambasted and thrown under the bus, and being exposed by none other than Albert Wesker, who you've already built up for, 2 seasons or whatever at that point. And it would just be very interesting. They could really make compelling television if they just expanded their horizons. But it was one of those things that it was like, we're survival horror. We have, every game has to have zombies. Every story has to has the T virus breaking out. Like, I just thought it'd be really interesting. That IP is one of those things that could transcend the genre that it created, but they never did that. And it seems like they just have no interest in telling a compelling story, which is what makes the game so good to me in the first place. I said this the other day, and I'll say it again. Really, the concept of the first game is what hooks you in, and just because of the setting and the mystery setting up and the police involvement, and it feels real. And then they just said we have to do this now. Every game has to do this because it's the tried and tested formula. Here we go. And then as things go on, the game suffered, and I could go on. I'm not going to go on about that. But getting back to the CG movie specifically, they also have the potential. Like, it is their IP. They're writing these stories. They absolutely could just show you Raccoon City. They could show you these things. Like, there's so much, if as fans, that we could come up with. There's fan films that are better and have explored more of what we want to see than where they have gone. And I get it. Everything costs money, and it's a business, and you have to find a way to move the story forward. But really, if Resident Evil is a guaranteed seller, then it makes no sense why you would not explore these things, create compelling side stories. There are fan games out there that I have seen. I have no desire. I don't trust a lot of software out there, especially with the rise of cyber issues, cybercrime out there, ransomware being the main thing. But I see these fan games like During the Storm. That would I wish Capcom would just do something like that. Like I said the other day, show us Raccoon City in the RE engine. Do a full game about that. Like, it would sell gangbusters, guaranteed. Make a compelling story. Have a new main protagonist. Like, do Kevin from Outbreak and just have him like experience that stuff. That'd be wild. Like, just showing that would be would guarantee sales there. But alas, they've gone ahead and locked themselves. They've chosen to lock themselves into everything has to be action and survival horror with this franchise, because this is what makes Resident Evil. This is what makes it synonymous. Whereas no one takes risks anymore in any sort of medium. Everyone just makes it clean cut and predictable, and they lock themselves in a box, and then they wonder why everything is getting diminishing returns, because you're not taking risks. You're not trying to tell new, exciting, fresh stories. You're just trying to do the same formula over and over and over again, which, don't get me wrong, everything I've said up to this point makes it seem like I'm not a fan of the series or I'm hypercritical of them. They've done really well with the RE Engine games despite Resident Evil 3. That is absolute trash, and I will never ever tell anyone to buy that, unless it's like at a deep sale and you get it for like $2. Then it might be worth it. But with the RE Engine titles themselves, more so than not, they've knocked it out of the park, and I would recommend you play all of those games. And in fact, I'm really looking forward to, if rumors are to be believed, the remakes of Zero and Code Veronica, which has already been announced. But those are, as I said in my previous video, my least two favorite entries in the series based on the things that they tried. And they are going to address some key narrative issues that I have, at least I hope. So, based off of what they've done, and this is also the benefit of doing the remakes of 2 and 3 and 4 and now Veronica, like, you in intertwining a new narrative with 7, 8, and Requiem, like, now you have this whole setup now where you have a clear vision of beginning of franchise to end, and now you can build upon that. And if rumors are to be believed, they're finally having a cohesive story and making that the main narrative. Now, for the OG, where it felt more real and it was a small town and the outbreak felt like legitimate and we have those fond memories of it, unfortunately that canon is going away, but those games still exist and you can still experience that. Also super sad because there was a cohesive universe built and the S.D. Perry novels. Like, those first 4 novels were great. I'll do another video specifically talking about those videos here in the coming days, I'm sure. But as it relates to the RE Engine titles, it looks like they're doing what I would hope they've done and have a unified vision going forward. Now, in those gaps between games, you have the opportunity to expand to different genres, like show a courtroom drama of Umbrella being taken out legally by Yoko, by the Outbreak survivors actually testifying in court. Like, do a series over Outbreak. Like, you could easily do a show of Resident Evil, and I'll do another video about that in the coming weeks, don't you worry, where I talk about what I would do with a story, and adapt it to film, and how I would do that. And it would, spoiler alert, it's going to be a TV show. Like, that's the only way to accurately adapt it. But I'm getting off topic here, as I often do, and the topic here is the movies and where they have failed to really captivate anyone because they just can't cohesively tell the story or take the risks or anything, and it doesn't seem like they put a lot of precedent into that. Now, don't get me wrong, Constantine Films is trash, and they own the license. It's like kind of like Sony, how Sony owns Spider-Man. They own the license, and because they keep putting out one film every 5 years, they will keep the license. That's how it works. So we're gonna get the Zack Krieger reboot. I'm not really looking forward to that, based off of what I've seen. It might be fun, but again, it's like, just drop Resident Evil from it and it might be a good story. But the rest of the films have done what they've done, and we know that they are notorious for being terrible. So the bar is as low as it possibly can be, and so long as we get a decent film, I'm sure everyone will be at least somewhat pleased. You're still going to get people like me that will say, just drop Resident Evil from the title if it's not going to be Resident Evil. But hey, if this is a side story and we actually get like the actual story coming out, that'd be good. That'd be cool. There is potential. This could be, we could look back and say this is a jumping off point. So there is hope, but based on how we've been burned in the past, I don't think a lot of us do have hope. Alas, all we can do is wait and see what comes. And I think this would be a perfect time for them to focus on side stories, focus on the lore, focus on filling in the gaps between games with just, pivotal story that happens off screen. You could easily tell that. That's how you could leverage a movie franchise around this franchise of games that are literally have budgets of movies now. I don't know. You could just play Resident Evil and get the movie instead of watching a movie. That's where we're at with technology, and it's pretty great, actually. But hey, that's going to do it for me today. What do you think about the movies? How do you think they've been mishandled? What are your ideas with the movies? Comment below, let me know. I'm always interested in starting a dialogue with anyone who watches my stuff. So if you've made it this far, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. For more, like, comment, subscribe, all of that fun stuff. And until the next time, guys, my name is Ken, and I will see you then.